Welcome friends to another session on mathematical modeling. We will discuss combat models in this session. Combat models. During the First World War, F.W. Lanchester outlined several tentative mathematical models of the fledgling art of air warfare. These models have since been extended to represent a variety of competitions ranging from isolated battles to entire wars. We shall outline and solve some simple models commenting on a mixed conventional guerrilla combat such as Vietnam. 3 Lanchester combat models. An X force and a Y force are engaged in combat. Let X of t and Y of t denote the respective strengths of the forces at time t, where t is the time measured in days from the start of the combat. It is not easy to quantify strength, including as it does the number of combatants, their battle readiness, the nature and number of the weapons, the quality of the leadership, and a host of psychological and other intangible factors difficult even to describe, much less to turn into numbers. We shall take the easy way out and identify the strengths x of t and y of t with the number of combatants. We shall assume x of t and y of t vary continuously and even differentiably as functions of time. This is of course an idealization of the true state of affairs, since the strengths must be integers and change only by integer amount as time goes on. However, one might argue that when the strength is large, an increase by 1 or 2 is infinitesimal compared to the total, and we might as well allow the strength to change by an arbitrarily small amount, not just integral, over small time spans. Once we have made the idealization to continuous functions, we might as well go all the way and smooth off any corners on the graph of x of t and y of t versus t. Thus, we can reasonably take x of t and y of t to be continuous and differentiable. Although we may not have a specific formula for x of t as a function of t, we may have a good deal of information about the operational loss rate, that is OLR, of the x force, that is the loss rate due to inevitable diseases, desertions and other non-combat mishaps, the combat loss rate CLR due to encounters with y force, and the reinforcement or supply rate RR. We shall assume that the net rate of change in x of t is given by dx of t by dt is equal to minus of OLR plus CLR plus RR. A similar equation applies to the y force. The problem is to find appropriate formulas for these rates for each force and then to analyze the solutions x of t and y of t of the respective differential equations to determine who wins the combat. In the analysis which follows, we shall use a number of symbols which are listed: A, B, C, D, G, H, non-negative loss rate constants, PT, QT, reinforcement rates in numbers of combatants per day, x of t, y of t, strengths of the opposing forces at time t, x naught, y naught, strengths at the start of the combat, t, time in days from the start of combat. We will write out 3 Lanchesterian combat models using these symbols and then discuss the meaning of the models. First one is conventional combat, that is CONCOM. dx of t by dt is equal to minus ax of t minus by of t plus p of t. dy of t by dt is equal to minus cx of t minus dy of t plus q of t. Guerrilla combat, GURCOM, dx of t by dt is equal to minus ax of t minus gx of t into y of t plus p of t. dy of t by dt is equal to minus cx of t minus hx of t y of t plus q of t. Next is mixed conventional guerrilla combat or Vietnam. dx of t by dt is equal to minus ax of t minus gx of t y of t plus p of t. dy of t by dt is equal to minus Cx of t minus dy of t plus q of t. Each equation relates the time rate of change of the strength of a force to other rate terms and has the form of equation 1. The reinforcement rates P of t and Q of t are almost self-evident. For an isolated force, such a term would be 0. Ordinarily, one would expect a reinforcement rate to be non-negative, although combatants could be withdrawn from the battle, producing a negative reinforcement rate. The operational loss rates minus Ax of t and minus dy of t yield constant relative loss rates in the absence of combat and reinforcement. Dx by dt by x is equal to minus of A and dy by dt by y is equal to minus d. Other loss rates are possible, but these give a reasonably good match to most situations. If the only terms appearing in the Lanchesterian models are reinforcement and operational loss rates, then no combat occurs, since neither side has any effect whatsoever on the other. It is the interaction terms minus by of t minus Cx of t minus Gx of t into y of t and minus Hx of t into y of t which introduce actual combat into the models. Now, a conventional force operates in the open, and Lanchester assumes that every member of such a force is within kill range of the enemy. It is also assumed that as soon as the conventional force suffers a loss, fire is concentrated on the remaining combatants. Under these conditions, Lanchester proposes for a conventional X force a combat loss rate of the form minus by of t, where B is the combat effectiveness coefficient of the Y force. Observe that the combat loss rate of the X force per individual combatant in the Y force is given by dx by dt by y is equal to minus B. Thus, B is a measure of the average effectiveness in combat of each member of the Y force. A similar explanation can be given for the term C x of t. It is not a simple matter to calculate the combat effectiveness coefficients B and C. One way is to set B is equal to Ry into Py and C is equal to Rx into Px, where Ry and Rx are respective firing rates, that is shots per combatant per day of the Y and the X force, and Py and Px are the respective probabilities that a single shot kills an opponent. Observe that using equation 4, the Y force determines B and the X force determines C. Sometimes an ex post factor analysis will reveal the values of B and C. These loss rates for conventional forces are linear. According to Lanchester, the combat loss rates of guerrilla forces are non-linear. The argument is as follows: let x of t denote the strength of a guerrilla force invisible to the opponent and occupying a fixed region R. The opponent fires into R, but cannot know when a kill has been made. It seems plausible that the combat loss rate for the guerrilla force should then be proportional to its own numbers x of t in R. For the larger x of t, the greater the probability that an opponent's shot will kill. The combat loss rate of the guerrilla X force is also proportional to the strength y of t of the opponents. Thus, we have the combat loss rate for the guerrilla is g into x of t y of t. The combat effectiveness coefficient g for the opponent y of the guerrilla X force is somewhat more complicated to estimate than the coefficient b given by equation 4. We can still use the firing rate Ry, but Py is no longer solely determined by the Y force. Lanchester argues that instead the probability of a kill of a member of the guerrilla X force is directly proportional to the area of the effectiveness Ry of a single Y shot and inversely proportional to the area Ax of the region R occupied by guerrillas. The number Ry is the area of the exposed part of the body of a single guerrilla combatant under cover. Thus, plausible formulas for G and H are G is equal to Ry into Ary by Ax and H is equal to Rx into Arx by Ay. The crucial difference here is that guerrilla force has some degree of control over its own compact loss constants, while this is not the case with a conventional force. Presumably, the guerrilla force will try to occupy as extensive a region as possible during compact, subject of course to the difficulties of having forces spread too thinly. The three models CONCOM, GERCOM and Vietnam are based on various combinations of these Lanchestrian supply and loss rates. Note that the term Vietnam is not strictly accurate for a model of the quarter century conflict in that country, since various forces used various modes of combat at various times. Nevertheless, the term and the model have some degree of significance. To test the validity of these models, data is needed from various battles. First, let us solve simplified versions of CONCOM, GERCOM and Vietnam. Conventional combat, the square law. Suppose a pair of isolated conventional forces is fighting in an idealized setting for which operational losses are nil. With no reinforcements and no operational losses on either side, CONCOM reduces to the simple linear system dx by dt is equal to minus by and dy by dt is equal to minus cx. Dividing equation 6a by 6b, we have that dy by dx is equal to cx by by. Separating the variables in equation 7 and integrating, we obtain b into integral y dot to y of t y dy is equal to c into integral x dot to x of t x dx. That is b into y square of t minus y dot square is equal to c into x square of t minus x dot square. This quadratic relation between the opposing forces explains why the linear system in equation 6 has acquired the anomalous name of the square law model. Let k be the constant b y dot square minus c x dot square. The graph of the equation b y square minus c x square is equal to k obtained from equation 8 is a hyperbola, that is a pair of straight lines if k is equal to 0, and we shall call equation 9 the hyperbolic law. These hyperbolas are plotted in figure 1 for various values of k. We only look at the curves in the strength quadrant, that is x greater than or equal to 0, y greater than or equal to 0 for obvious reasons. The arrowheads on the curves indicate the direction of changing strengths as time passes. Since dx by dt is less than 0 and dy by dt less than 0, whenever x of t is greater than 0 and y of t is greater than 0, the directions of the arrowheads are as indicated. Who wins in such a combat? Let us say that one force wins if the other force vanishes first. For example, y wins if k is greater than 0, since according to equation 9, y never vanishes in this case, while the x force has been annihilated by the time y of t has decreased to root of k by b. Thus, the y force seeks to establish a compact setting in which k is greater than 0. That is, the y force wants the following inequality to hold: b y dot square is greater than c x dot square. From equation 4, we see that equation 10 can be written as y dot by x dot the whole square is greater than Rx by Ry into Px by Py, the condition for the predominance of the y force. Assuming that both forces are well trained and in good combat condition, it is hard to see how either force can do much about the right side of equation 11. The square on the left side of equation 11 shows that changes in the initial force ratio y naught by x naught are magnified quadratically. Clearly, the aim of the y force will be to increase the force ratio, while the opponents try to decrease the ratio. This is obvious, but what may not be obvious is the squaring effect indicated in equation 11. This effect is just what makes achieving a favorable local force ratio so important. For example, a change from y naught by x naught is equal to 1 to y naught by x naught is equal to 2 results in a fourfold advantage for the y force. Of course, equation 11 is the inequality condition favoring the y force. the x force will try to reverse the inequality by increasing x naught. Equation 9 only relates the strengths of the two forces to each other, not to the passage of time. Formulas for the variation of the strengths of the forces in time can be obtained from equation 6 by following procedure. Differentiate equation 6a and use equation 6b to obtain d square x by dt square is equal to minus b into dy by dt, which is equal to b into c into x, or d square x by dt square minus bcx is equal to 0. Using as initial conditions x naught is equal to x of 0 and minus b y naught is equal to dx by dt at t equal to 0, the solution of the second order constant coefficient linear homogeneous ordinary differential equation 12 is given by x of t is equal to x naught cos h beta t minus gamma y naught sin h beta t, where beta is equal to root of b by c and gamma is equal to root of b by c. Similarly, y of t is equal to y naught cos h beta t minus x naught by gamma sin h beta t. The graphs of equation 13 and 14 are given in figure 2 in the particular case that k greater than 0, that is b of y naught square greater than c x naught square, or equivalently gamma y naught greater than x naught. Observe that for the victory of the y force, it is not necessary that y naught exceed x naught, but that gamma y naught is greater than x naught. Guerrilla combat, the linear law. The dynamical equations modeling a pair of guerrilla forces in combat can be easily solved if, as above, there are no operational losses and no reinforcements on either side. Under these drastic conditions, GERCOM reduces to the nonlinear quadratic system. Dx by dt is equal to minus gxy, dy by dt is equal to minus hxy. Dividing equations 15b by equation 15a, we obtain the simple equation dy by dx is equal to h by g, which can be integrated to give the relation, which is the linear law, g into y of t minus y naught is equal to h into x of t minus x naught. The linear form of equation 16 explains why the nonlinear system equation 15 is often called the linear compact law. Rewriting equation 16, we have gy minus hx is equal to capital L, where capital L is equal to g y naught minus h x naught. The y force wins the combat if L is greater than 0 and loses if L is less than 0. As before, the y force wins if the x force is annihilated, while some y troops still remain active combatants. Figure 3 shows the linear graphs of equation 17. Now, y wins if L is greater than 0, that is if y naught by x naught is greater than h by g. Using equation 5, one method for calculating g and h, in this case of guerrilla combat, the win condition for y is that y naught by x naught is greater than rx by ry into arx by ary into ax by ay. The pre-combat strategy for the y force involves attempting to maximize the force ratio y naught by x naught and to minimize the reciprocal area ratio ax by ay. Probably neither side can do much to affect the ratios rx by ry and arx by ary. Observe that the left side of equation 19 is linear, whereas concom the corresponding term is squared. You refer to equation 11. Thus, changes in the ratio y naught by x naught are not magnified by squaring. On the other hand, another term ax by ay now exists which can be altered. No such ratio exists in the concom model. A better way of writing equation 19 might be as ay into y naught by ax into x naught is greater than rx by ry into arx by ary. Thus, we see that the products ax x naught and ay y naught are the critical terms. We shall say no more about this model since no significant wars have been exclusively of this type. Vietnam, the parabolic law. In Vietnam, a guerrilla force opposes a conventional force. Once again, let us simplify matters and assume that no reinforcements arrive and no operational losses occur. In this case, Vietnam reduces to dx by dt is equal to minus gxy, dy by dt is equal to minus cy. Here x denotes the guerrilla and y the conventional force. Dividing equation 21b by 21a, we have that dy by dx is equal to c by gy. Integrating, we have that this is the parabolic law, g y square of t is equal to 2 c x of t plus m, where m is equal to g y naught square minus 2 c x naught. The guerrilla force wins if m is less than 0 and the conventional y force wins if m is greater than 0. Figure 4 shows the parabolas defined by equation 23. Experience seems to indicate that a conventional y force can defeat a guerrilla x force only if the force ratio y naught by x naught is significantly greater than 1. Let us see what the parabolic law by equation 23 has to say about the force ratio y naught by x naught needed to ensure a win by the conventional y force. Recall that such a win occurs if m is greater than 0. That is, if we have that y naught by x naught square is greater than 2c by g into 1 by x naught, which is equal to 2 into rx by ry into ax px by ary into 1 by x naught, where we have used equations 4 and 5 to evaluate c and g in terms of firing rates, kill regions and the area of the region occupied by the guerrilla force. Let us assume that the firing rates rx and ry are approximately equal, so that rx by ry is approximately equal to 1. In addition, suppose that probability that a shot by a guerrilla kills an opponent is px is equal to 0.1 and that the vulnerable part of the body of a single guerrilla combatant under cover is 2 feet square, that is ARY is equal to 2.0. Thus, we have that equation 24 reduces to y naught by x naught square is greater than 0.1 into AX by x naught. Now, guerrilla forces usually operate in relatively small units. So, let us set x naught is equal to 100 and let us assign 1000 feet square to each guerrilla combatant, thereby setting AX is equal to 100 into 1000, which is equal to 1 lakh. Under these hypotheses, equation 25 reduces to y naught by x naught the whole square is greater than 0.1 into 1 lakh by 100, which is equal to 100, or y naught by x naught is greater than 10. Thus, the simplified Vietnam model indicates that the ratio of the conventional force to the guerrilla force must indeed be large if the guerrillas operate in small units from relatively large region in which they can remain hidden. Of course, what is important is the local ratio, although it might be assumed that this reflects the global ratio. Now, the war in South Vietnam was not fought according to such simplified models. Sometimes the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese fought in a conventional way, that is example during the Tet Offensive of February 1968, while the American and South Vietnamese forces did occasionally use guerrilla units. Nevertheless, both sides perceived the overall struggle in terms of mixed conventional guerrilla model, at least in a qualitative way. According to equation 26, the conventional South Vietnamese and American forces would have needed a tenfold force ratio over guerrilla Viet Congressman writing in 1962 listed the average force ratios for 10 mixed conventional guerrilla wars following World War II and included figures for the South Vietnam conflict up to that point. See figure 5. From figure 5, it would appear that the overall force ratio in such a conflict should favor the conventional force only if it is at least 8:1. Conventional forces by guerrilla forces should be greater than 8. Thus, the data strengthen our assertion that equation 26 is approximately correct. The figure is a bit misleading since no account is taken of reinforcement rates or operational loss rates over a period of the conflict are used. As in figure 5, by 1968 the ratio of conventional forces to the guerrilla forces had declined to the point 6:1, where the victory for the guerrilla forces was likely, assuming the validity of the parabolic law for the Vietnam Compact and the numbers used. This decline occurred in spite of the massive American reinforcements. In fact, shortly after the Tet Offensive, in which the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese won some local victories, but fighting mostly in a conventional manner, General Westmoreland requested an additional of 206,000 troops from President Johnson. The following table of troop strengths indicate that this number was not of much help. Table 1 gives the forces in South Vietnam Spring in 1968. If President Johnson had sent 206,000 troops as requested, the force ratio would have increased to 18,86,000 by 2,80,000, which is approximately equal to 6.7, still not enough to have improved the situation much for the conventional forces. Moreover, the guerrilla forces would only have had to increase to 3,14,000 in order to maintain a ratio 6:1. It was analysis such as this, coupled with the disquiet of the American people about the whole affair, that led President Johnson to seek a political solution to the Vietnamese conflict. He rejected Westmoreland's request and initiated the Paris peace talks, which eventually led to the American disengagement of 1973. The final victory of the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese came in April 1975. Before we conclude, let us summarize what we have learned in this session. The goal of this module was to show how mathematical models can be used to portray a battle. We have discussed 3 Lanchester compact models, which are based on square law, linear law and the parabolic law. Here are some exercise problems that you can try out. First one, suppose the simplified conventional compact law dx by dt is equal to minus by and dy by dt is equal to minus cx applies with x naught is equal to 15,000, y naught is equal to 20,000, b is equal to 0.04, c is equal to 0.5. Suppose the y force has another 5,000 troops which can be used as reinforcements, but must be inserted into the battle all at once if at all. Give a complete analysis of the optimal point for bringing in the reinforcements. Second one, repeat problem 1 with linear law. Use equations dx by dt is equal to minus gxy, dy by dt is equal to minus hxy and gy minus hx is equal to capital L with x naught is equal to 15,000, y naught is equal to 20,000, g is equal to 0.04 and h is equal to 0.05, y reinforcements of 5,000. Here are some references for further reading. M. Brown, Differential Equations and Their Applications, 2nd edition, New York, Springer Verlag 1978. Second one, S. J. Judgeman, A Lanchester Model of Guerrilla Warfare, Operation Research Journal, Volume 10, pages 818 to 827, 1962. Third one, J. H. Engel, A Verification of Lanchester's Law, Operational Research Journal, Volume 2, pages 163 to 171, 1954. Fourth one, Modules in Applied Mathematics, Volume 1, Differential Equation Models by William F. Lucas, M. Brown, C. S. Coleman, D. A. Drew, Springer Verlag 1983. With this, we come to an end of this session. We will continue with mathematical modeling in another session. Till then, goodbye.